Welcome back to another episode of Inboxing. We are at Inboxing Season 2, brought to you by Hillberg Email Marketing. And no one else at the moment. If you're looking to advertise, I can mention your company, and a lot of email marketing people are listening, and especially tonight, and especially when this episode gets released in January. Because tonight's guest is someone very, very special. Somebody who's been doing email for a very long time and really sort of led the way in a lot of ways by writing the email marketing rules, which personally became sort of like an email marketing Bible to me. I based presentations on it. So anyway, I'm a huge fan. Chad White has had a long journey through the email. He's probably been doing email for almost 20 years. And it's been a long journey from ESPs to consulting. He's really I don't know, he's the inner circle, the White Tower people. That's how I think of him. But let him tell his story and get a lot of wisdom that he has and that he's going to be sharing with us tonight. So without any further ado, please welcome Chad White. Chad.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome to Inboxing.
Oh, thank you, and thanks for that lovely introduction.
For sure. How's the White Tower?
I've never heard that one before, so I hope that I'm not viewed as like up in a White Tower, separate from everyone. But I love this industry, and I've been in the industry for formally about 15 years, hardcore. So not quite 20, but I love this space, and the people are amazing. So
I'll give you that. Like, everyone's been so gracious. I mean, I miss the face-to-face conferences because people are so nice. The information sharing and helping each other out is really amazing.
The community feel is pretty spectacular, and I'm sure there are other industries that are as nice as ours, but ours is pretty nice. There's some pretty fantastic people in our industry.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I did a little UX, so that industry also, I know there's a lot of, there's obviously I'm blanking, but there's fantastic platforms to help each other out on. Google a problem and it pops up. But anyway, we're going way off topic. So let's just jump into it. So give us a little bit of your background and how you got into email to begin with.
Yeah, so like so many people, I fell into email. So I'm a journalist by training. I was a reporter and an editor at Condé Nast and Dow Jones for a number of years. And during that time, I covered technology and retail. And one of the things that we would do to get leads for stories is sign up for retailers' promotional emails, and because they would announce, when they were doing new things or launching new services, or at that time the web was really still developing, and so they would be announcing like new web services or website features or whatever it was, and those were fantastic leads for stories, and so we then follow up with the retailer. So that was sort of my first exposure to email. And when I was with Dow Jones, blogs started to kind of appear on the scene. And the pivotal moment for me is that my brother started a blog, and like a competitive younger brother, I was like, well, if my brother can start a blog, like I can start a blog. And his was just like a personal blog. But I was like, I don't want to do that. I want to write about something else. What can I write about? And I was like, well, I see all these emails all the time. Let me do that. And I'll just blog every day about the retail emails that I get, and what are they talking about, and what does the design look like, and and it was really at that point that I started to really get an email marketing education, and was reading a lot about email and sharing stuff every day and really starting to meet people. And that was how I met Jeannie Mullen, who had just started the Email Experience Council. And after a little while, not very long, actually, about 6 months or so of knowing her, I quit my job at Dow Jones, joined the EUC, and sort of the rest is history. That was really, from then on, it was no looking back, and I've been in the email space ever since.
Uh-huh. All right. All right. So what are the things that you find in your inbox that kind of, give you a bad feeling?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think the number one thing is cold emails. Here in the United States, you can email anybody and on a mass basis, and it shows. It shows when you're not sending a one-to-one cold email. So I guess I should stipulate, like, mass cold email is just really horrible. Like, it's just so clear that it's not tailored to me. And in many cases, like, they don't know who I am, like, at all. And so the email is just way off base, and it's just, it's an easy decision to junk that. So that's probably the most annoying thing. And especially since I've been here at Oracle, and I have this title of a research director, they think I'm like researching all kinds of things, and so so I attract a lot of cold email, unfortunately, and the vast, like, 99% of it is just completely off base. So that's super annoying. I think the other, like, pet peeve that I have right now, looking at promotional emails that I've, like, subscribed for, is that so many of them are not mobile friendly. And it's a sad, sad thing to see, here in 2021, because we were chatting before the show started, and I was talking about how there was a period of time, probably in, like, 2011, 2012, where it felt like we were, like, a little bit of a lull in terms of, like, things that we were talking about. Like, the conversation in the industry was getting a little circular, and because we were talking so much about mobile friendliness and responsive email design, and so it kind of felt like, for some of us, it felt like we were kind of, like, repeating ourselves a lot, and it breaks my heart to see that this is still a problem. And it's not about responsive design. It's about, like, the basics of mobile friendliness. And the thing that drives me the most insane is font sizes. Like, people are, like, using font sizes that are just way, way too small. Like, you are making me work so hard. And sometimes if I really want it, I'll pinch and zoom, but, like, when you get to the point where you're asking your subscribers to pinch and zoom, like you've lost the vast majority of your audience. They're just not going to do it. And my eyesight is fine with glasses, and my eyesight is just fine, but, like, I can imagine other people who have eyesight that's worse than mine, like, especially older people, like, it is just too much to ask. Like, you gotta go easy on people. And I know that there's a lot of concerns about where the fold is and getting content above the fold and stuff, but if you can't read it, it doesn't matter, right? If it's illegible and above the fold, you have not accomplished what you want to accomplish. So it's still got to be user friendly. So I think that's one of my big pet peeves right now, is I see in my inbox routinely big brands sending messages that are just too hard to read. You got to bump up that font size and be kind. And most of the time, I'm, during COVID days, during pandemic times, I'm reading, emails, on my phone in controlled environments. And so imagine, once people are, like, out and about much more, you've got to be just that much more user friendly, because people are going to be out in sunny areas or in really dark area, like, right, like, mottled light coming through leaves of of trees. Like, be kind, use a good size font size, somewhere
Right.
in
Yeah,
the
that came
neighborhood of
up a
14
lot.
to 18 point, somewhere in there.
Yeah, that came up a lot with Jay Oram. Like, apparently Elliot Ross. I'm sure you know him. Yeah, he has this idea of, like, temporary handicapness. Yeah, like, you're just talking about, you're in an elevator. You don't have reception. You're getting,
Yeah.
and you don't have any, alt text, and yeah, like, all this stuff you're talking about, you're hitting on a lot of points. And Kiers,
Yeah.
I want to
So
circle back a little bit to something you said about cold emails.
sure.
Just because, like, the whole cold email world, like, rocked, as when I went from, like, big brand or whatever business, marketing emails, to a consultancy, and then I, like, find out there's this whole, like, dark side of email. Like, in the email world, it's like, you don't buy lists, and I think of buying lists as, like, this thing from, like, Southeast Asia, we have lists we can sell you. No, it's like huge brands, billion-dollar brands sell data. Like I'm shocked by it. But now I'm embarrassed to say, but like, yeah, I have clients. I'm running campaigns for them using one of these tools. Where the like, yeah, paid good money to get like really targeted lists of a business niche that they're trying to market to. Yeah. And
I hope they paid good money, because that's usually a marker that it's maybe worthwhile. Like, I think so often it's viewed as like this like quick and cheap way to like build a list, and if it's cheap, it's garbage.
if it's cheap, it's garbage. No, but I'm really talking about, I mean, whatever. I don't want to name. We're not doing any promotional activity here, but they're yeah, big names and verified emails, low bounce rates, all the stuff.
Yeah. No, I mean, we have
And they
clients
charge
too.
really good money for that. Yeah.
Yeah. No, we have clients too that dabble in this. This is this is definitely the part of email marketing that I really don't like, and I feel like yeah, you're always better off building organically. But sometimes brands are impatient, or they're looking for shortcuts. It happens.
For sure.
But no, it's not the best. But I did want to go back to what you were saying before about about essentially what you're talking about is inclusive design, and so you called it temporary, but I would call it situational impairments. This idea that like you're in a situation where you have like one hand full, so you effectively have like one useful hand, which obviously is not the same as if you were missing a limb, but like in that moment, you have an impairment. And the same thing as if you were out in bright sunlight, that makes it harder to see things too. And so I really love this idea of inclusive design, where you're talking about, trying to make it, the experience good for everybody. People who have permanent, impairments, but also people who have temporary impairments, a broken arm, just had, eye surgery, have an ear infection, like things that will like go away and get fixed, but like in that moment, they're like very impaired for a period of time. And then lastly, situational, which is, just in that moment where, they're not able to be 100%, like they might normally be. And so I really love that way of thinking about it, because I feel like, especially here in the United States, like, I mean, there's a reason we have laws that, mandate and penalize people for not being accommodative to people with disabilities. There's a reason we have laws, and it's because we wouldn't do it otherwise. And so I like this, like, recognizing that there's these other temporary situations and situational instances where you could do similar things that would help all of these people. It makes that bucket so much bigger and drives home that like we're all kind of in this together, rather than seeing it as like, oh, there's this narrow part of my audience, that has these special needs. You know what? We all have special needs at different times and in different situations. So yeah, so things like using a large font size, that's good for everybody.
Right. Nah, and it's interesting, just, when you want to have like a lot of content, like, I mean, I'm thinking of Dan Oshinsky, because, his email is, just a link to his giant email. You know what I mean? Like, so
people scroll, if it's not user friendly, people are going to scroll, right? I mean, that's so
for sure.
I mean, short and bad is still bad, but if it's long and like easy to interact with, no, it's super easy to scroll. You spin that scroll wheel, or flick your finger.
Yeah, flick your finger. Yeah, no, but you said a great thing also, just even just being on the road, or just being, like, you are not, you don't have two hands, and like you don't even have brain space to like really, like, oh, boom boom, okay, that was interesting, like, but if it's not boom boom, if it requires more than that, you're out. You lost it.
Yeah, and again, like the formatting stuff also makes it easier to like absorb information, right? If it's tiny, like you're kind of like squinting, you're working hard. But if it's like easy to read, it's easier to absorb. Certainly, absolutely use bullets and all the other tricks too, subheads and everything that's good, sort of text design. You need to
Yeah, or
do that
even
as
like
well.
text on like images where like there's not enough contrast and like yeah, you can't read it. And
Yeah, that's another pet peeve of mine recently is seeing a lot of brands using really incredible images, but that those images have a lot of tonal variations. And so when they run text across it, like part of the text is awesome, but then part of it is not. And so it's just very like that's not good enough, right? It can't be, that half your text, half your characters are very legible and the other half of your characters are not, like that's still a bad experience. So yeah, you gotta be careful about these things. I mean, the legibility, it's just basic. We got to get those basic things down.
For sure. All right, moving on. All right, so why do you think email is such an amazing platform?
All right, so here I do have a few notes, and this is one I took notes on because frankly there's so many reasons why email is awesome that I couldn't like memorize them all. So pardon me as I look down
I
a
feel like
little
this could be a
bit.
T-shirt.
Email marketing is it's special.
Speak
It's a
to.
special animal, and it's really amazing. So first of all, like everybody has an email account. Like I think it's like 90 to 95%, somewhere in there. Essentially, everybody has an email account, which is great. That means you have like incredible reach. All right. So secondly, it's not just like any account. Like in many cases, it's your account of record, right? Like that's where all of your shopping receipts go. Tax forms, important financial documents, like everything of like great import ends up in your inbox, and gets put in a folder or archived. So it's not just any place, it's not TikTok, right? Like it's something that you hold on to, and your like, really important stuff is there. So that's really important. The next one I think is actually maybe like almost the most important thing is that it's the most preferred channel for brand communications. Years and years and years of surveys have shown this just endlessly, that consumers prefer to hear from brands via email. And I think this is one of the things that marketers and brands really lose sight of, like on a routine basis. Anytime any new shiny platform comes along, the next TikTok, the next Pinterest, whatever, anytime these new platforms pop up, like marketers are like, oh, that's where the eyeballs are, so I need to rush over there. And they do this thing where they insert themselves into a platform that really isn't like made for them, but they kind of like butt their way into the room and put their elbows out and knock people out of the way and insert themselves into these conversations. And I really think it's worth really recognizing like where you're wanted, right? And in the inbox is where you're really wanted and accepted. And I think that's like a really powerful thing versus being somewhere where you are intruding on the conversation. Marketers seem to be endlessly optimistic that they can be the cool kid, wherever they go. I don't know that that's like always successful. But the email inbox is very welcoming of brands, and I think that makes it like just a really powerful place because you're not fighting so much friction. You're not climbing uphill so much trying to convince people that you're in the right place. All right, so also, it's an open platform. Nobody owns email, although certainly you see Apple right now flexing pretty hard and making a lot of big changes, on their own. But it's still a platform that is, for the most part, open and not a walled garden, right? And that gives it not only stability, right? So it's not going to MySpace and like go away. It's not going to Google Wave on you and wave bye-bye. So that's good for stability, but also it keeps the cost low because nobody controls all the levers. Although, again, I think at this moment we've had, at least here in the United States, but I think in other places too, kind of a lot of consolidation that it's like, it's kind of becoming an oligopoly, like not a lot of, like there's only a handful of really big players that control most of everything. And that starts to make it a little bit dangerous, but still we've got this, this this nice open platform that keeps the costs low for everybody. So that's also really good. Supports rich media and interactivity. That's fantastic. It supports one-to-one, so it's very easy to address just one person, so you're not constantly like broadcasting to everybody. Twitter is fantastic. I love Twitter. I do a lot on Twitter, but you're broadcasting to everybody all the time, and email allows you to very nicely be able to send one-to-one emails to people via automations, or to create nice segments where you're sending a more targeted message to just some of your audience. So that's super powerful. It's pretty immediate thanks to mobile. We've already kind of like been crying a little bit about mobile friendliness, but the fact that so many people read their email on mobile devices makes it pretty immediate, which is amazing and different from how it was, say, 15 years ago when I started in this industry. There you had like multiple days sometimes before emails would get read, and now you've got like a pretty condensed timeline of reads. It's relatively highly measurable, and I say relatively because it's way more measurable than, say, TV or radio or billboards or anything like that, but it's certainly not perfect. There's lots of gaps, but we do have pretty decent visibility into what's going on, so we're not in the dark. And then I think lastly, I would say that it's sort of like the number one conversion and retention channel. Like, this is the channel that's just fantastic for like existing fans, existing customers, to keep them coming back and nurturing them along. So again, that's a long list of reasons. I think all those are like really unique. And if you start thinking about other channels that could match up against those characteristics, a lot of channels start to fall out pretty fast. Like, there's a bunch of really unique and powerful things about email.
Yeah, no, there's no question. And, just saying it's like the most, like I story from today. One of my clients I do a newsletter for every day got like 8 orders from a client, and in the email she sent him, it's like she actually sent an email instead of ordering online, because whatever, she was temporarily having a problem. But she sent an email, said, I'd like to order 8, of this item. And then just as a side, I love your newsletter. I read it every week. It makes me so happy. Thank you so much. I just wrote like, yeah, email works. Like, that's it.
Absolutely.
Yes. All right, awesome. Let's jump into the next one. All right, what do companies need to be doing to really get the most from their email marketing efforts?
Yeah, so here I would just say, there's a lot of things obviously that brands could do, but I think if I had to narrow it down to one thing, I think it would be to like integrate email into like your broader marketing activities and into your broader organization. It needs to be de-siloed, and I think email has been having like a really successful time of becoming de-siloed over the last few years. I'm anxious for that momentum to continue, because I think that email, as much as I'm like a super email fan, like email is most powerful, when it's used with other channels. Like, omni-channel is absolutely where everything is headed. So, you see periodically like, oh, SMS is like better than email for this reason, or organic, like SEO is better than email or whatever. And it's like, that's so tired. It's so tired. Like, it's not email versus anything. Yeah, people love to kick email because like nobody like, since nobody owns email, like, it's like a very easy thing to pick a fight with, because it doesn't really fight back, right? When you pick a fight with Facebook, like Facebook will fight back. But like, when Facebook, takes a swing at email, like, it's so, the ownership is so distributed that like nobody fights back. And so you have all of these like ridiculous scenarios over the years where like Facebook Messenger is gonna kill email, and RSS was supposed to kill email, and like just ridiculous nonsense, on and on and on and on. So yeah, so we're having a nice time where we're de-siloing it. That's great, and I think that presents actually a lot of like great opportunities for email to take lessons learned from other channels, and to hopefully drive companies more towards getting like a 360-degree view of their customers, so that that email marketers can then better understand, like in totality, that we do a pretty good job of understanding our subscribers, but we need to do a better job of understanding our customers, right? Like we can't just treat them as an entity that like lives in that one channel, because that's not how consumers operate today, right? They're in all these different channels, multiple touches. And so, we need to recognize that. And so there's great learnings that email can get from other channels, and then vice versa. So de-siloing is the way to go.
That's really interesting. I think you might be the first person to mention that as like something brands should be doing. So congratulations for an original answer. And it's just not something I hear often. Try to integrate. I think at Cafe probably mentioned something about that.
That wouldn't be surprising to me.
Yeah, the holistic, that's our whole thing. Holistic email,
It's
a very holistic approach.
Mm-hmm.
People aren't on one platform, and people aren't on one platform. Treat them where you find them. All right. Okay. All right. So how can companies build a list in a positive way?
Yeah. So we talked a little bit already about like organic growth. I think that's really important. I think a big part of that is like looking at where you are attracting subscribers currently, looking at all of your different subscriber acquisition sources. I think looking at your subscribers' performance by acquisition sources is a really critical way of understanding which acquisition sources are actually performing well for you and which ones are not. And I think in a lot of cases, brands sort of like dump all those into one place, and then all the not so great subscribers that came through not so great acquisition channels, they sort of get lost, and all the nice, clean, pure water, and you can't really see them anymore. But if you track by channel, you can really see that like some of your acquisition channels are really delivering most of your complaints, most of your bounces, most of your inactivity, and that there's really, in many cases, probably like, 3 or 4, like a very small number of acquisition sources that are really your killer champions. Like they're the ones that are attracting subscribers that have great brand affinity and are really, either solid customers or solid subscribers, and if you have a subscription-based business. So I think that's a big one. And once you identify those acquisition channels that are really your big performers, then you go in and you optimize. Now you know where to focus. Optimize those channels and make them even better for you. So, really, using a unique, onboarding sequence that's, unique to that channel, that really speaks to those customers or those prospects that are coming through that channel, and then doing it for the next one as well, so that you're really, just squeezing the most you can out of each of those acquisition sources, and to make like the best onboarding experience you possibly can.
All right, that's awesome. I mean, I'll tell you, just hearing you talk about how like, you might find one of your channels, that's where all the bounces are coming from. Like, it's reminded me a lot of, like, I don't know, Mark Rober and Mr. Beast are very popular in my household. And they've been doing this thing about the ocean cleanup. And apparently, like the 100 out of all the rivers in the world, it's like 100 the worst rivers are bringing all the plastic into the ocean. So it's sort of like that.
That's where my head is going. I think that's really accurate. And again, I think like we just many times don't have the visibility to see which acquisition sources are poisoning our list, right? Like all of our problems, are probably from like 1 or 2 of our acquisition sources.
Sorry about that. All right, cool. All right, so what do you do all day at Oracle?
So I have a great job. So my job is to lead content marketing efforts and thought leadership efforts for Oracle Marketing Consulting. So we're a group of around 500 digital marketing consultants, and we do it all. A lot of what we do is email, but we also do web and social media marketing and all kinds of SMS and all kinds of other stuff. And so my job is to look at the questions that we get from our clients, and then kind of work with the team to come up with points of view to help answer those questions, to share with our clients, And then, the other fun part of my job is to then take some of that and repurpose it into something that we can share publicly, so that everybody sees, we have like just incredibly smart people out there. And, a lot of times, I get the glory of taking credit for a lot of those great ideas, but it really is amazing. We have so many smart people here at Oracle that I get to work with and interact with on a daily basis. And that's one of the great things that I really enjoy about my job, is I get to interact with all these smart people all the time. They make me smarter. And I like to think I help them too. I help refine their ideas and get their ideas out there. So yeah, in a nutshell, that's what I do. And, we're always, paying attention kind of first and foremost to, what are our clients thinking about? What are they wondering about? What are they worrying about? And then, looking for ways that we can kind of, fill those gaps with something that's a great starting point for a conversation that then goes much deeper into the particular brand.
All right. So tell us, how'd you get, you started at Dow Jones and then you're at Oracle. There's a lot of years in between, and I know about ExactTarget and Litmus at least. So let's hear about it.
Yeah. So So after I left journalism, I joined the Email Experience Council, and I was there for a while. And then the Direct Marketing Association acquired us, and recently the ANA acquired the DMA. This is sort of a theme of my time in the industry. Lots of acquisitions. So the DMA acquired us, and then from there, after a while, I went on and joined this email marketing agency called Smith Harmon. Fantastic, email marketing boutique agency, and they got acquired by Responsys, which was pre being acquired by Oracle later on. And I was with Responsys for a number of years. So in some cases, I'm a little bit of a boomerang here at Oracle. There's actually still quite a few people here from my Responsys days, which was really nice. So in a way, joining Oracle was a little bit like coming home, because there was a lot of people here still that I knew, which is fantastic. So after a while at Responsys, I did the unthinkable and went to ExactTarget, which no one seemed to hold that against me, but definitely was maybe not like the coolest move. But ET was great. I had a lot of fun there. We did a lot of really interesting research. And sort of along that whole journey, I was doing a lot of sort of the same kinds of things, like looking at email marketing trends, looking at email marketing best practices, really staying on top of, like what is the industry talking about, or what should the industry be talking about, and how can we like move that conversation forward, always with an eye on how can we help our clients and our customers be more effective. And so I had a great time at ET, and then Salesforce acquired us, and I was fine for about a year, and then it got not so fine, and I went to Litmus after that, which was also fantastic, and was there for I think about 4 years before joining Oracle. So I think it's a great ride in the industry, and appreciate that I've been able to work with, a variety of, tech providers, mostly in sort of the consultative space, but, different size, customers. Litmus obviously caters much more to, to a lot of smaller brands. They have some really big brands too, but much more of a mix versus, say, here at Oracle, where I definitely get very steeped in like the enterprise point of view. But yeah, it's been fantastic. I've had a pleasure of working with a lot of amazing people.
Right now, like you said, like the industry is filled with it's a lot of nice people, and it's a great community. So I guess, we're all really blessed, I guess, to be part of that.
Oh, for sure.
All right. So yeah, you wrote an amazing book, and I feel like it was one of the first. I don't know if you know any books that were written before that, but the Email Marketing Rules, it was like sort of my Bible. It was the first email marketing book I bought. So I hope you got a few pens from that. But
well, yeah, that's awesome to hear, and I do hear that quite often, which is one of the best things, frankly, when people tell me like, oh, like I'm new to the industry and I just got your book, and it's like, oh, so helpful, like for like really getting the lay of the land. When I hear that, that just that fills me with such joy, because because that's really the reason why I wrote the book. So this was back. So I published the first edition of Marketing Rules back in 2013, and I think I started writing it in like 2011, and it was around that time. There was a lot of talk about like really like dissing best practices, and there was all this jibber jabber talk about how the best practice is the practice that's best for your business. And I just thought that was such nonsense. Best practices are, it's kind of like it's the group think about what you should do. And it doesn't arise out of nothing. It arises out of consumer behaviors and out of like business practices, and it's like a really fantastic place to start. And in many cases, stop. So sometimes there's best practices that lead you to like to do something slightly different. You can like put a little bit of a twist on it, but sometimes like some of the best practices like they just are, and you should just do that. And there's a lot of I think again sort of nonsense talk about how like best practices lead to sameness, and I think that's equally a ridiculous thing to say. That's like saying, what, all cars are the same because they've all got 4 wheels and like a windshield, and they've got like pedals and steering wheels. They're all the same. Like, that's crazy. Cars are not all the same because they have those things in common. They all have engines. They're all the same. No. So that just seems that kind of talk, like after a while, was like really just irritating me. So I was like, what are all the best practices? And not like the points of execution, but like the points like underneath the execution, sort of like the foundational stuff, right? Because executions change, right? Like, having a user-friendly email design, like that changes as technology changes. But like there's sort of like a base level of what you're trying to accomplish. And so I tried really hard to focus on those things and not get like swept up into different executions or different technologies. You're not going to find a lot of code in my book because the code stuff changes all the time. And there's all, things come in and out of support. And so that's not what it's about. It's about, what's that like foundational layer that you're trying to accomplish, and like that foundational level thinking. And so that was why I wrote the book, because frankly, I got kind of ticked off by like how people were talking about best practices. And I wanted to be a champion for frankly, like common sense is how I've always thought about it, is that, best practices are just like steeped in common sense and consumer behaviors and a bunch of stuff that like you kind of can't change. And in many cases, when you fight best practices, you're just fighting against the consumer, because the consumer has certain expectations. And when you violate that, do you stand out? Absolutely. Is it a good kind of standing out? Debatable in a lot of cases. Like, yeah, I remember, so for instance, I remember when Groupon had like their innovative like unsubscribe page where they had like a fun video of like somebody like getting like chastised or abused like every time somebody like opted out. And everyone was like, oh, this is so amazing and wonderful. Wow, they're really like standing out and being creative. And that unsubscribe page and certainly all the buzz around what they did led a ton of people to unsubscribe so that they could see that. And in some cases, they didn't resubscribe. And in other cases, they resubscribed, with a different email address, which caused, multiple identities in their databases. And eventually they stopped it because it was bad. So they stood out, but it caused harm to their system. So I would encourage people to like think about, in this like attention-driven society that we have, I don't believe that like all PR is good PR. Like, think about how you actually want to stand out and make sure that it's like it has a purpose and that you're not just some, attention-hungry person. Nobody likes thirsty people, right? Like, have a purpose, and don't do things that are going to cause harm just because you're trying to stand out.
Yeah, thank you. All right. Yeah, I mean, this is sort of like a canned question, but yeah, I mean, yeah, you just talked about, and I'd love to talk about your book more because it really did have such a, but I just loved in your book exactly what you just said, more or less, is that, that you basically are creating the template or something, if you will. But like, yeah, you say like, this is not going to like make everyone the same. Like in that space, you have so much creative license, but it created the
Absolutely.
space for you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
If I told 100 people to draw a dog, everybody would draw a different dog, right? But no two would be the same. And it's sort of the same thing with email marketing best practices. Like you lay out these
Right.
basic fundamental rules that steer people in the right direction, and they're all going to end up with different programs because they have unique voices, they have unique audiences, and on and on and on and on. There's no danger of sameness.
Right. And you really did boil it down, like what you were talking about, like the underlying principle, like don't you write like the rule as like, I mean, the rules probably, I can't even recall exactly how you'd phrase it, but you wouldn't say like, make the text like mobile friendly. Like you'd say like, make sure all text is easily read. I don't know. Like,
Yeah,
and
yeah, it's boiling it down,
yeah, it's
really
sort of
making
like
it
good idea, bad
foundational.
idea, make text hard to read. Bad idea. All right. So yeah, anyway, go ahead. What are your top 5 marketing tips, email marketing tips for 2022?
Sure. So yeah, here again, I got some quick notes. So first I would say is not to lose the empathy that we gained during the pandemic. I was really heartened by all the messaging that I saw in my inbox in late March and definitely into April and May of 2020. It really was amazing to see how the industry recognized how the consumer had changed and that consumers were focused on different things and they had different priorities and that consumers were stressed and marketing messaging changed. And you saw, a lot of like reactivation messaging and shopping cart abandonment messaging like change and become more uh, more more consumer like empathetic and more friendly instead of all about like me, hey, you left and you didn't buy my thing, why did you do that? And became, or why haven't you opened my emails in a while? The messaging changed because they recognized that maybe they haven't opened your message in a while because they were hospitalized or because a loved one was hospitalized or for a variety of other reasons that had nothing to do with the pandemic, right? So that was amazing to see, and I can see some of that starting to kind of slip away. And so I would encourage people to like not lose the empathy that they gained during the pandemic. So that would be number one. Number two, probably not a surprise to anybody who's been listening to anything I've been saying recently, is that pay attention to Apple's mail privacy protection and like do the work to mitigate those changes. This is, I think, mostly like the biggest impact is on enterprise, like very large senders, but even small senders need to pay attention to what's going on with that and how it could potentially affect them. I think we're just at the beginning, I think, of really starting to wrangle the impacts of this. So
Well, I think
that's
it
another.
really, yeah, it just really depends on like, if that's the way the industry is going to follow. Like, I mean, when Andrew Bonar was here, I asked him it's the first question, like, what's the thing that bothers you? He's like, oh, the tracking pixel. I don't see any images in my inbox, and I know because I worked in this industry, how much information we can glean with that pixel. And then a year later, Apple's like, yeah, the end of it. So yeah, I guess it depends if like this is like a tide that's happening. But also I'm curious, like what you think about this. I feel like ESPs should be doing a lot to make it easier for marketers, to say like, okay, this is your app, like segment my Apple clients, just to
Yeah,
do it
which
for you automatically. Yeah,
yeah,
like
well, so Oracle is well on its way to doing that. We segment out what we're calling auto opens generated by Apple. So we already do that today in responses, and there's going to be more happening. And I think a lot of other ESPs are going to do similar things. We didn't get a lot of time, to react to this. Like, it was announced on June 10th, and on I think it was June 30th, it went into open beta. And then it went live on September 20th. So we have very little time. And now we're going into the holidays. And hopefully everybody is doing what we're doing and locking down their code base for the holiday season, so we don't mess anything up, during this critical time of the year. So we had like a pretty short window to make adjustments before having to lock down our code base for the holiday season. And I think a lot of a lot of ESPs are going to make more changes or make maybe all of their changes, early in the new year. So again, we're just at the beginning of this. Now, you did mention, tracking pixels and, how, the privacy connections. That I will confess that I'm slightly conflicted about this. I didn't think this was a big deal prior, and I like to think that I'm pretty on the up and up about, respecting, subscribers. But in many ways, I really see like open tracking pixels as kind of like a first party cookie. And I don't hear anybody up in arms about first party cookies, like going crazy over that. Third party cookies, yes, right? Like
yeah,
that's
I
that
hear that. That's a very good analysis.
right.
I mean,
People are opting into this. They don't need this. Like, nobody needs promotional emails. Nobody.
right,
Nobody needs that, but they want it, right? So they're saying, "Hey, send that to me." Now, I
right.
do agree that we're not transparent about all the things that tracking pixels could do. And for me, the thing that is the most problematic is the location stuff. Like,
Ah,
like, had Apple just used proxy servers to obscure locations, absolutely. Like, frankly, like, we probably should have done that already, right? So like that makes it like just a ton of sense to me. But I don't understand like this kind of like war on opens, where, people, like, marketers shouldn't know when you interact with a message from them. Like, I'm just being honest, like, I don't fundamentally understand why that's a problem, that when I talk to somebody, I don't get to see if they're paying attention to what I'm saying. I don't feel like there's anything nefarious there, but the location stuff, absolutely, that's problematic. I mean, frankly, had they done everything in MPP except for creating false opens, I probably would have been like 100% fine with it. But it feels like, for me, like that's like the bridge too far, because again, this is an opt-in permission-based channel where people are raising their hands and they don't need it. It is not the web. Email is not the web, and it is not apps, right? You cannot function in modern society without going to websites and using apps. You just can't. So it's not an option. But promotional email, which again, I feel like is like the crux of this, is completely optional. But our transparency hasn't been great. And, I'm sure that that Andrew was telling you, like, there's this long arc of privacy that's been going on, right? And I think the thing that caught most of us off guard is that we didn't perceive the shift from legislative privacy to like big tech privacy. I think that's the shift that caught us all off guard, right? Because if you look back, Castle, I want to say 2012, 2013, something like that. Castle happened, and then a few years later, GDPR happened, each with long implementation cycles, and then CCPA happened here in the United States. Like, there's a very clear arc of progress on this issue. And I think the thing that caught us all off guard is that we missed the baton pass from governments to big tech. And certainly, Google starting to, deprecate third-party cookies. I think that was the sign that, like, I certainly missed in, like, kind of connecting the dots. So for me, Apple, like, really blindsided me. I didn't expect that to happen. So, but like, this is the moment that we're having, where now big tech companies essentially have the power to legislate privacy, and they're doing it in a very different fashion than we're used to, right? There's no open comment period. There's no 2-year implementation window. It's just, we're just doing it without talking to anybody, and now it's rolled out 3 months later. And that's kind of rough.
and it's default also, right? Like Apple users, people that have an Apple device, like by default, they're not they're not tracking their opens. It's not like an opt-in thing.
Yeah. So so to get back to the list, so that's number 2. So number 3, we talked about subscriber acquisition sources. I'm a big fan of optimizing those, measuring those. I think that should be on everybody's to-do list for next year. That's important, and especially as as the impact of MPV is felt for big enterprises, trying to make sure that subscriber quality is good is going to help you to avoid some deliverability problems because of MPV obscuring opens, which makes it harder to select audiences that are active. So you should give yourself a little bit of a quality boost. 4, segmentation, personalization. We've seen a lot of that during the pandemic. Everyone sort of went back to the basics during the pandemic as teams got leaner, and and everybody had to kind of work harder with less. We saw a lot of people, not doing fancy interactive emails, not doing AMP for email, but really focusing on the basics of personalization and segmentation and automation. So that's really important. And so my 5th one would be automation, and not only like launching new automations, but optimizing the ones that you have. I always say that an automated email is a living, breathing animal, right? And we treat it like we're shooting a gun. Like we treat it like we're just firing off like a missile or a bullet or something. And like once we fire it off, once we load it up, and we hit start, it just goes. And that's not the case, right? These things need regular care and nurturing. They need you to pay attention to them and make sure they're still healthy, that none of the links are broken or images are broken. You have to check that language, which again, we saw a lot of people doing during the pandemic, revisiting the language they were using in automations. That's great. So I think there's a ton to be gained from optimizing and like regularly reviewing and even A/B testing automations, which are drastically under A/B tested compared to broadcast emails. Drastically, which is sad because most automations are like so much more effective than broadcast emails. Like, so any A/B testing you do, any optimization you do on your triggered emails, any incremental gain is magnified because these emails are so effective. The ROI is so high on them. But we're all very caught up in the day-to-day and getting that next broadcast email out, that we don't give these programs the time and attention that they truly deserve.
Yeah, and that's really it. I think, my own experience, like it took so much effort to get that welcome series up, that we finally got it done and it's running. Great. Let's move on.
Right. Yeah. No, we're very to-do list oriented in email, always moving on to the next thing. But that maintenance, it's really important. That maintenance and ongoing optimization is really super powerful, and it's no more powerful than with automations.
For sure. All right. Got that malware bites stupid pop-up. Making me nuts. There we go. All right. So now we just sort of touched on it, but where are people, where are the email pitfalls?
Yeah. So I would say that still not getting some of the basics right is really important. Again, my pet peeve about like text size being too small, like that's like a really easy to fix problem. I think some of those basics we fall down on pretty hard. And when you don't get some of those basics right, then that advanced stuff you do kind of doesn't matter nearly so much. So I would definitely have people focus on getting those basics right. And then the other big thing I would have people focus on that, I think is a big pitfall, is that I think often email marketers see their jobs as managing campaigns. And I think that that's a not effective way to run an email marketing program. Your job is to manage subscribers. And so you should be focusing more on subscriber-centric metrics and a lot less on campaign-centric metrics. You're not managing a series of campaigns. You're managing people. You're managing customers and prospects, and your job is to serve them and to nurture them. And you're not about like optimizing campaigns. You're about sort of optimizing the experience of people. So there are ways that you can do that, and it sort of starts with using the right kinds of metrics, but a lot of it is the frame of mind as well. So I think that's another big pitfall.
All right. Okay, so what are your favorite brands and why?
Yeah, so I'd love to say that there was like brands I feel like are doing like tons of amazing things, but like the brands that I tend to gravitate towards are just the ones that are talking about the things that I'm sort of like most interested in at the time. So I always open Fandango's emails because I want to know what movies are coming out, and in that case they actually do a pretty good job of like they have like embedded video, like animated GIFs that like give you a sense of what a movie is like, and then you can click through and watch the trailer. So it's not, I don't think they're doing anything like magical, but like they're talking about like a thing that I care about, which is why I signed up, and they're doing it in an effective way. IKEA. I've got kids that abuse furniture, so we shop at IKEA for stuff. And I feel like they actually have been doing just a fantastic job of like understanding where people are at. Like their subject lines lately have just been fantastic, really homing in on, what are we about psychologically, during the pandemic, how we're nesting, but also talking about, like green issues. And like, I feel like they're just really tapped in to like, what are people thinking about right now? What's sort of top of mind? And they're able to frame up those issues in line with themselves and their products and really tell a story where you're connecting all those dots. So I feel like they've been doing a fantastic job. And then lastly, Reedsy. I'm working sort of a side passion project. I'm writing a sci-fi novel, and they have great content about writing novels and what you should do and not do and what you should think about. And so like I'm there for the content that they promote in their emails.
Oh, good luck with that. That's a
Thanks.
little sneak preview. Based on the previous experience, I guess it'll be about 2 years.
It'll be a little while. Yeah, writing a novel is way harder than writing a nonfiction book. I will say that.
Okay.
All of these books up here are books that I've been reading on novel writing. So deep down in the hole.
All right. So a similar question, but what are your all-time favorite email campaigns and what made them so memorable for you?
Yeah. So so I've got a few for sure. So I mean, I love the year-end review emails. Spotify's done good ones, Nintendo and others. I think those are great because they're all in on the personalization, and you can really see yourself in it. I think those have been fantastic. I was really sad to see Spotify like go from an email-based one to like where they drive you to the website to see your stats and figures and stuff. That was a little sad, but I think those emails really stand out to me, again, because they're just like 1,000% personalized. So those are great. I also like some of the scrollers that I've seen over the years. So there was this email from Beach Park, which is like a water park, I want to say in Brazil. And they sent out an email again years ago. And this email, I want to say, was like 12,000 pixels tall. A really super tall, and like the idea is that they had this like monstrously tall like water slide, and you had to like just like flip, and they had like a blurred photos. Like it gave you that experience of going down this massive water slide, and then it had a CTA at the bottom, way down at the bottom, and like all these years later, like that stands out in my mind. It's like a really kind of simple concept, and it breaks in certain environments because it's so tall, but like they really were able to convey through an experience what that water slide was like in a way that was exciting and surprising, and I thought really powerful. There was also another email from the Canadian Tourism Commission, again, also a number of years ago.
Good for them.
And it had side scrolling, and like it was sort of like a treasure hunt. And so you had to like kind of find the CTA, but like they would tell you like, oh, like go to the left. And so you would like scroll to the left, and then you would find another thing, and it would say like, go south or whatever. Like, and so you had to like wind your way by like scrolling up and down and left and right through this big email, which again, in some cases broke in some environments. I think that Outlook, it didn't work in Outlook at all. But it was like this really unique experience that was really stuck in my head of like, oh, I'm like following like, these instructions to like, this treasure at the, that's like hidden. So I thought both of those like have always stood out in my mind. And then lastly, some of the interactive campaigns have been really special. The BBC does a bunch of really nice ones. Nest has done a bunch of really cool ones. Lego. All those brands have done a number of really cool interactive emails that I think are also really special.
Cool. All right. Is this the... All right. So what are your proudest email achievements?
Yeah, so definitely my proudest achievement was winning the EEC's 2018 Email Marketer Thought Leader of the Year award. And the thing that made that special is that, the EEC has a panel that handles the awards, and it's like the panel is like full of all of like the email marketing luminaries. And so it was really amazing to me that like all of those people thought that I deserved this recognition. So that was definitely my proudest moment. That felt pretty awesome to be validated by a lot of my own like email marketing heroes. So that felt really special.
That's really cool. All right, and we've gotten to the end, so you have the floor. Whatever you want to go. Your final thoughts.
I guess my final thought would be, soak it up. This industry is like really amazing, full of tons of amazing people who are very open and willing to share. And I think one of the things that I love about this industry is that it's constantly changing. I've never heard an email marketer say that they're bored. I'm sure a lot of them would say, gosh, I wish things would slow down a little bit. I'm sure that they say that all the time, but no one's ever said that they were bored. And that's the part that's like super attractive to me. I love that our industry is always evolving. There's always new wrinkles. Sure, we've been talking about personalization for 15 years, but the way we talked about it 15 years ago versus today is just like day and night, just radically different. I love the fact that we've got, more AI and machine learning that's coming online. That's probably going to be, a talking point for the next 20 years, probably. So there's always like this evolution of the channel. It's always improving. They're always getting new wrinkles, most of which are additive. Sometimes we have things like MPP, which I think is like, maybe not even mostly good. I'm not sure. I haven't totally decided yet there, but there's a lot of just like amazing new things that happen in this channel. This is not a static channel. Radio doesn't really change. Billboards, I guess they became electronic and that sort of changed them a little bit. But like, we really live, we operate in a very dynamic channel, which for me is super exciting.
All right. Yeah, and that's probably one of the reasons why it is what it is. And it can always surprise you.
So we should appreciate that and like really like soak it up. Like that's great. And I think the other thing that's really special about our industry is that there's always the next email, right? So if you sent out something and you sort of like thought, oh, that could have been better, or gosh, I wish I hadn't done it quite that way in hindsight, like you don't have to wait very long before you get another shot at being even better. So I love like the iteration that we have. There's just constant opportunities to improve and learn from mistakes and become better email marketers.
That's awesome. Chad White, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. All right, guys, that's our show for today. Remember, Hilleberg Email Marketing is email marketing agency helping email marketing teams grow and accomplish more faster and better. So that's our show for tonight. If anyone's interested in sponsoring, you can get in touch with me at hilleberg.com/sponsor. And that's it. Good night, guys.